We've got lots of fans of Planned Brotherhood who they tune in every week, right?
Yeah, we have a handful that do. I know.
You see how he said what the downloads you get in the first 2 days, those are your real listeners.
That's what Howie from freebeerpodcast.com at one time told me that, which kind of freaked me out at the time. Now I'm kind of flattered if that is the case.
Now it gets good after day 2. But God, there's certain people, and we're talking about episode 27, storytelling. Mm-hmm. She's obviously listening, right?
Yeah, based on what I know, she has to be, yes.
There's people like Mom who we told over and over again, stop listening, stop listening. She never would, but would get so mad about everything we said.
Close to hysterical at some points.
But at least she stopped. Storytelling still listens to every single episode.
Yeah, I mean, I think she just scans and waits for us to say something horrible about her. Because if you think about it, if you break it down week by week, that's been... It was before Christmas that or right around Christmas that we released that episode.
Her name might get mentioned briefly, semi-often, but I mean, she's listening through every episode to hear when it does. It's not like it's segments.
Despite the fact, and obviously we're not giving her real name here, but we did it all over the place on episode 27. Yeah. So those people have an idea of what we're talking about. And even at the time, the text exchange that we'd had that resulted in this big blowout, even then she had claimed that she'd stopped listening prior to.
That's why we thought we were pretty safe doing that.
Right. And then, of course, that episode came out, and we touched on this again. She got me back, episode 35. By putting me on the Craigslist gay thing, and that was all well and good. But you thought her brother's going to beat you up for a little bit, but overall, we figured the thing had blown over. Even though, and she'll delete the account as soon as I mention this, but she's on Twitter, and I found that out through a mutual. Well, I wouldn't say a mutual friend, but a friend of hers who is a fan of our show, apparently, which I'm sure enrages her. But so occasionally I'll see it, and a couple of weeks ago there was do you call it a meme that was going around?
Yeah.
And I forget what it was. Oh, unacceptable. And she was listing the things she deemed unacceptable. And about the second one down the line was having a douchey podcast.
Right. And that week, we had mentioned her name.
Right. And that could have been coincidence. That could just be a general statement based on episode 27 still. But then...
but how did she hear that one so quickly? You know what I mean?
Right.
To where, the next day
She's our number one fan.
Work. I was at work the very next day being warned about her brothers looking for me.
Mm-hmm. And so time goes on. She's very passive aggressive, like I said about the Twitter thing. Not that we're not. I mean, that's what the show is. But we figured we weren't going to deal with her head on, and we still haven't, and I'm thankful for that. If I can't imagine a situation in which I'm in the same room as her ever again.
I know, that would be so bad.
It would be instantly awful. I don't doubt that that's the first time I'd actually be punched in the face.
Yeah, by her?
By her. She's obviously angry. She's furious right now that we're devoting this much time to it again.
Yeah.
But the whole reason it's coming up again, because I could give a shit. I mean, I know we still mention her occasionally, but overall, I got all the demons out in episode 27. But then we told the story, my friend Sam, the first time he was on the show, episode 51. And if you go to the tail end of that episode, we tell a story about one of Storytelling's friends that I had known while we were dating, who I had a big crush on and was at this bar. But so in that episode, we didn't name her by name at any time. We just described the situation. In fact, her codename was Cobwebs, this particular girl. And my friend Sam successfully had sex with her, and I was really bitter about it. And it was a one-night thing. She didn't live in town, but I guess they'd exchanged phone numbers or something. Mm-hmm. And Sam, I mean, he didn't want a relationship with her, but based on that episode, he was very pleased with the results.
Yeah.
And was hoping to have it happen again. And now you tell a part about how you ran into her, which is odd.
I ran into her. Barry came to where I work for a beer after work, or to have a beer while I was getting off of work. Right before I left, I go outside to smoke a cigarette with a girl from work who also knows Storytelling and Cobwebs.
Such a small fucking town, man.
Yeah, and this girl Cobwebs, she's out there outside of sports.
And you've never met her prior to this?
I never met her, but since I was with the girl who knew her, she said, because she knew about this episode of the podcast. Although this girl Cobwebs has a very similar name to someone else who everyone knows, and I got those two confused. Because
everybody does.
The girl from work, she was like, "This is not the one that your friend fucked, right?" And I was like, "No, that's the one she is," because I've met the other one and I know that wasn't her. And she was like, "Oh yeah, then you got the name wrong." But the girl comes up and she starts talking to us, and then she looks at me and she's like, "I know you." And I was like,
But how does she know you?
Well, I was like, "We've never met. I'm sure you know my brother." And she's like, "Oh yeah, of course. You're Nick's brother. You're Nick's brother." And then I was, "Oh yeah." So she goes, "Oh yeah, you're Nick's brother. You talked about me on your little internet show." And I was like, "Oh my God."
Wait.
But I knew we were in the clear because we didn't say anything mean about her.
Right. But you skipped past the best line when she said, "A little birdie told me." What was that?
No, not yet. Because
God, I'm stepping all over you.
I just asked her. I was like, "Oh wow, how did you hear about that?" Because she wouldn't know even to listen if Sam was on it.
No.
Unless did you guys talk to her about the podcast when you saw her at that?
Maybe
bar?
in passing, but she's not the type that would go and seek it out just based
Right.
on that.
I
Nothing against her. I mean, it's just not something she's into.
So I asked her how she knew, and she goes, "Oh, a little birdie told me." And obviously, storytelling is listening to every episode.
Yep, this
to
was
hear
a clear
that
tip off of that, yeah.
and be able to pick up even who we were talking about. So I made my joke. I hear it's a not so little birdie. Ha ha ha. She thought that was pretty funny. And then
I thought her response was, "You're fucking mean."
Yeah, you're mean. But I told her, I was like, we weren't mean to you in this episode at all. I
thought about it after I'd found out that she'd heard. I was like, what could we have said? And the fact that storytelling goes and like tries to make a thing of it. These guys were talking shit about you.
Yeah.
I said I wanted to jerk off to her. That's a compliment.
Yeah. You did call her Coke Skinny, which, like I say, I disagree with. But she was really loud.
Oh, she is, yeah.
Just a loud person. And
you might want to calm it down. She might be listening.
She's like, when you get off work, come over, have a fucking beer with us. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know. My uncle's with me. I don't think that's going to happen. And it didn't happen. That was the night I eventually got kicked out of Sports Center. But I just said, yeah, it was just because that guy Sam's on. And she goes, "Oh, Sam, I remember Sam. He was so cute. Tell him to give me a call."
Yeah, after you had told me, you sent me a text that says, "I'm talking to Cobwebs at a bar right now." Mm-hmm. And Sam was with me when I received that. And he's like, "What the fuck?" And he went into panic mode because he wants to bang her again,
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh, God, she heard the show." And I said, think about it. If she heard the show, what did she hear? Nothing bad. Unless she's really defensive storytelling, which she's apparently not. She was going to buy you a beer.
Yeah.
But then he's like, oh, he was so panicked about it. And then she was coming to Seattle this last weekend for the Capitol Hill block party.
But I said that she said, "Give me a call."
Right. And I think he thought I maybe made that up at the end. Like he wasn't sure if I was trying to make him feel better. But then she called him when she got into town. And again, he was freaking out. He was texting me. He's like, Cobwebs called me. I got to go get a drink with her. I'm freaking out. And I was like, don't freak out. Even if she heard the show, there's nothing to be afraid of. And he bet her again. Nice job, Sam. High five.
He bet her again.
Yes, that's what I said.
Yeah.
So, like, it's all for nothing. I just get riled up at the fact that she's still making her little snooty comments and trying to get us in trouble with friends or former friends of hers.
Right. It's like if we say
not everybody we talk about we're going to call fat and lesbian like her.
Yeah. Is it anyone who we say anything about, like, now we have to figure out she's going to go ahead and call them and let them know.
Right. And I'm not worried about it, quite honestly.
Yeah.
And now we have this great ingenious idea of coming up with code names for everybody.
Her Twitters are fucking lame.
Oh, yeah. What's your favorite? She's totally going to delete her account now. We're ruining this.
There's one, all it said...
I won't give away your account, storytelling.
There's one, all it said was...
Twitter.com/storytelling.
Taco hell. That was her whole one. Hold on, let's see if I can find any. Where's the one about the podcast? That's all it said was unacceptable podcast.
Yeah, having a douchey podcast, which, whatever, I understand. I don't know. And this is going back to the same thing I was worried about in the beginning when we first started really laying into her, is how would I feel if I were her listening to this? But don't... This
is pretty pathetic what we're doing. Admittedly, what I'm doing.
Right.
Let's read her Twitters.
I agree that we went down a bad path there. Yeah. But now I forget my point even. I just quit posturing and pretending like you could give a shit when you obviously it's consuming your whole life. I like to think it is.
Not even quit posturing, just quit listening. You know what I mean?
Yeah, or at least be honest if you are.
No, but no, I would rather her just not listen.
Obviously, that's what we're hoping for.
Yeah.
But we've been hoping that from episode 1.
So what do you want? You want a letter from her saying, okay, I admit it, I listen?
At least if she's going to hate us, like, send us a hateful email so we'll have something to read on the show, you know? I don't care if she continues to listen, and I know for a fact that she will. She's been saying the same thing since last Christmas. Oh, fuck your show. I wouldn't give that the time of day. You obviously will give it all the time you need.
An hour a week at least.
Soaking in every fucking detail of every episode. How does this relate to me in some way, you know?
Yeah.
I guess I'd be the same way. I get excited when we get mentioned briefly on podcasts.
Yeah, but in such a hateful way, I don't know that I would keep listening, looking for it.
Would you subscribe to her podcast?
It depends, man. If she talked about us, yeah, I would probably want to listen to that. I know I'm immediately going back on what I just said. Yeah,
I know
would
that's
listen to that.
all I'm saying is put yourself in her position. All right.
I guess.
Yeah, I'd listen, but I wouldn't
but
say
man
I
up
wasn't listening.
yeah.
I would be the guy to write
Don't
that
just
jackass
like
email.
secretly go behind our backs, telling everyone who we talked about them, telling them like she told Cobwebs, oh, like they were mean to you on it, and I've got to tell her how we weren't mean to her on it. You know, sending your brothers to beat me up, like, obviously, I fucking hate you. Like, why is that some big surprise?
Yeah, was that ever a dispute?
And we have mutual friends on Facebook. I don't need to see that, like, I'm blocked from your Facebook from ever requesting you as a friend.
You see that from her?
Yeah, well, I told you because I also noticed about
That must have happened right off the bat with me because I don't see that at all.
Prisoner 280 from the prom and who listens, her Facebook thing is the same. Like when their name pops up, like storytelling will comment on somebody's thing, and usually on Facebook when somebody who you're not friends with has commented on what
You
your
still
friends
see a
say,
picture.
right? And you can click on the link and add his friend and stuff like that. With storytellings and with Prisoner 280's blocked.
Yeah, what's Prisoner 280's beef with you?
I don't know. Didn't I talk shit about how annoying she was at the prom?
Oh, yeah. I guess that would about do it.
Yeah.
But she still comments on my page.
Yeah.
It's amazing the people that we piss off that I respect her decision to just block you and not make a big thing of it, you know? She's not going out there saying, this fucking asshole called
But
me
again,
whatever you called her.
it is a matter of, did you, like, if you're blocking me for a reason, I'm not going to friend request you, you know?
Right. I think the only person, well, obviously storytelling is blocking me. I don't even see her shit ever. I prefer not to have any mutual friends with her.
Yeah.
But then even Pincushion, although that was my doing, I blocked her at one time, and now like I'll see her bullshit, insane, nonsense comments to people, but I don't have to look at her boobs hanging out of her shirt the whole time
Gross.
now. Yeah, the last time her picture was visible when she tried to reach out to me, which was a big mess. This is several months ago now. I know the only reason she sent me a message was because apparently, not to get all into Facebook, Aaron Sorkin will do that for us later in the year. If you even if somebody's blocking you, if you send them a direct message, their picture will come on display again for like a month. And so for that particular message, all of a sudden I had to see her face again, and there was some guy. This is Pincushion I'm talking about. Some guy all up on her, obviously her new boyfriend that she's fucking around on, Shirley. And then like a part of me thinks the actual message itself was, hey, I just wanted to. I know you're not talking to me anymore because I've been ignoring her since the beginning of the year. And so I'm totally winning, and every once in a while she'll reach out to me and try and get in contact with me again. And this last one was an apology. I just want, I know you're never going to talk to me again. I just want to say that I'm sorry for the way I treated you the last couple months we're involved. And so I thought, that's nice. I'm not going to reply back. But then a part of me also thinks she just wanted me to see that fucking picture.
Yeah. I guess she would also have to know that now it's going to be very visible to you. I had no idea.
Yeah. It was an awful experience, but now it's a month has passed again, and I'll wait for her next bullshit.
That was a month ago only?
No, it's more than that. I'm saying
okay.
I don't see her picture anymore because it's been more than a month.
Yeah, okay. You know whose picture I wish I didn't have to see on Facebook is Mom's. It doesn't pop up very often, except for like when I open my friends list. But like I don't know. I think she started sending someone cyber hugs or something like that. Obviously not me. It is a ridiculous, and isn't it a cell phone camera picture?
Yeah,
like it's thumbnail, but disgusting. God, that's a pretty good representation of the outfit she was wearing when we met up with her in Seattle this last time.
Yeah,
gangster hat, just loud blusa.
I'm wondering if there's some belly in that shirt in that picture.
Thank God it's probably too small to see that, but like just her face all squished up and. Ugh.
Yeah, people can find her. She's left a comment or two on my page at least.
Yeah.
I won't give her name here. Anyway, Mom stopped listening. Storytelling stopped listening also.
Yeah.
I guess I thought I had more to say. It's frustrating, and I can understand her frustration, but she's going about it all wrong.
Yeah.
She needs to be responsible and spend $200 on mics like us. Like, I really would listen, and that's why it feels like I'm circling it, the whole circumstance, because yeah, I would do the same thing she's doing to some degree, but I wouldn't be freaking out in the stupid ways that she is right now.
Yeah.
And then to claim that it's all over, like when she called her brothers off, like it's over with. She put me on Craigslist. She made me look the fool. And then I made a hilarious episode out of it, which she then listened to and probably made her even more upset.
Yeah.
Like, just consider it over now. Don't tell your friends who were mentioned in passing that we're the biggest dickheads in the world because we said something to hurt your
Didn't
feelings.
you say she's probably the one that got Emily from Planned Parenthood all on her shit, too?
That was a theory. I wouldn't put it past her. She's like, oh, because if she's still listening, oh, man, these guys are in legal trouble. Let me speed this process along, I wouldn't put it past her for a second. I don't necessarily blame her. Storytelling, this is just for me and her, PJ.
Okay.
If you're willing to come back to me, I want to make another run at this. That's it. That's all I wanted to say.
Are you sure you don't want to say anything else? I can already picture, like, nice music playing in the background.
See, now that you've got me thinking about that, this better show up in post, yeah?
Pull out the Polaroids of our sex life. We'll enjoy them together. We'll say, remember, it was a happier time
all right.
then. Eat up, Buttercup.
While the music is still going, this is really embarrassing for me. Never been talked about since the day. But you know where I'm going, don't you?
I don't know. I don't know if I want to know.
Okay. Well, just real briefly, this is after Storytelling and I had broken up. I'd moving back to Tacoma, and I was living with Kelly and her boyfriend, Andy. And...
You had Polaroid sex pictures.
Yes, I did. I had Polaroid sex pictures that involved her and I that I had taken back with me, and we were still fucking, like, occasionally. I would go over there. But it made sense. Like, I had a small bedroom, and so I kept it in the same place I kept my porn, It's in the same basic category. And this is probably why it will never see the light of day, at the time, were there with your wife, and I had just gotten, like, a Tara Patrick porn in the email, or, like, through the mail somehow or online. And I was done with it. Like, I had seen it to death by that point. And I had mentioned it to you for some reason.
Yeah.
And you, despite not liking Asians, you were a big Tara Patrick fan.
Yeah.
It was more because of the boobs than anything, right?
Sure.
So I'd mentioned that I had it, and I told you where my porn collection was so you could grab it without thinking about those Polaroid pictures. Like, it never even occurred to me that they were in the same spot. And it's not like you came back out and rubbed it in my face, but you're like, hey, I found some really disgusting pictures of you in Storytelling. And I turned beet red, and then that was the end of the conversation.
Oh, those pictures were nice, Storytelling. I've seen more of you than you want me to have. More than I want to.
The music's still going, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Think about you coming out wearing a dish towel as a blouse and whatever the fuck else you were thinking.
A legalize it button right over the boob. I guess that's it. I still love you. If the offer still stands, I want to marry you.
Got it.
Would you go to the wedding now? Like, even if
I
it was
wasn't
just some
allowed
big
to go back
preposterous-
then. Why would I go now? I was.
This
not
episode's
invited
not about
then.
me and you and our issues today. Every time we talk about Storytelling, this happens.
Dad will claim that I told him he couldn't come to my wedding.
Have we ever talked
he
about
told
this?
a lot of people about. I don't know about on the show.
Would you like to talk about it?
There's
Because I'm not sure I even know the full story.
There's not much to it. I don't remember a lot. I remember this was around the time Dad was married. Probably. When did he get married? In the year 2000 or 2001?
I believe pre 9/11.
Okay, so
Either way, it would have been. It was February.
Yeah, I think he'd been married for like 2 years at this point, and this is right around the time where his wife is just like psycho. It's so obvious that she's insane. There was a time where like Dad had Shania Twain tickets, and she wouldn't go with him, so he took one of his nieces, our cousins, instead, and she was talking about how he was sexually perverted and all this kind of
Not
thing.
only because he took our cousin, which is weird enough to accuse him of that,
Right.
but because Shania Twain was on TV, and he'd apparently, as far as she was concerned, perving out every time she came on TV.
And then I think there was some family picture or family something where she thought that another one of our girl cousins was like sluttily dressed, and it was
Sounds like Ashley to me.
He was so gross for ogling his niece like that and stuff like that.
It was insane. Like she was.
Right.
I mean, I not to defend Dad. I hate to do that, but Dad is not that type of person. Like once he's attached to somebody, that's it. That's his whole world. I mean, that's why he's still in this miserable
She's
marriage.
insane.
Yeah. But like she had no reason to accuse him of such things. And then I remember, what was it, like 1 year for his birthday or for their anniversary? You'd gotten him a James Bond book, like the history of James Bond, and she made him throw it out because of the bikini clad ladies.
I think he never even took it home. He just like left it somewhere on purpose, because I got him that one and the Beatles one, and he took the Beatles one, but it was just like became eventually clear that I can't have this James Bond one. Like he knew what was going to happen if he brought that home.
Right.
Like there was like the Goldfinger girl laying like right on the cover of the book.
And was a part of that fuck you to Dad? Like see if he will take it home?
No, I never thought about it when I was like, these are really cheap, boring but huge books at Borders for like $10.
Yeah. And two things Dad loves.
Yeah. And he loves corny shit like that too.
Just as a background,
we've all seen his car lamp that we have to watch him turn the ignition on over
it
and over
vrooms
again.
when the light comes on. It's awesome. And that's the thing. I don't like to bring up Juno unless I have to. But a scene in Juno that really spoke to me was Jason Bateman as the whipped guy. And then they have that huge house, and he's taking Juno around. And then he's like, this is my room. And it's like the one little tiny room where he could hang out and do his own thing. Dad has that exact room in his house.
Yeah.
And even then, like, he can't watch TV without putting headphones on,
Yeah.
Lord knows she'd be disturbed if it wasn't coming straight through the headphones.
Yeah, 2 floors up where she is.
Right. And she's just a psycho in general. Someone will recall that she threatened to throw her wedding ring off while they were on the freeway, and she made him get rid of all the pictures of us kids because it was a reminder of his previous marriage. So there's no reason that she should have expected to be invited to your wedding, was she?
Right, except for the fact that didn't affect me. You know what I mean? The fact that she was doing that to Dad, never mind the fact that I had to hear about it all the time, because I still talked on the phone with Dad pretty regularly, and right up to the point where I was getting married, had borrowed money from him for a deposit on my apartment, where I was like, I can pay you back in literally 4 days, and those 4 days were filled with nonstop calls and texts from her via him. When am I going to get this money back? Like when we said, and not a minute later. You know what I mean? But right before I got married, maybe a month before I got married, Grandma got married, and Dad came to that, and he brought Neckfurters, his wife, and he had never.
I'm glad to bring that name back.
He had never met Alvina before, and it was like summertime. She was wearing a dress, her boobs are sticking out. Alvina is like,
oh, I remember.
That's what she was wearing. And so we're kind of sitting on chairs in the corner and against one of the sides.
Describe the wedding. It was Grandma's wedding?
Yeah, pretty
still very casual, yeah.
And Alvina, and at Lori and Dave's house. And so we're sitting up in chairs like against the wall, and he comes around. And so I stand up, and Alvina stands up like to be like, "Oh, hi, nice to meet you." And am I going to have to hug him? All the crazy stuff I would at least be asking myself. So this is the first time
Alvina, your wife, met her stepmom?
Yeah, and Dad.
Oh, and Dad.
I'd never met Dad before.
Okay.
So I think I stood up, kind of gave him a hug or whatever like that, and then I was like, and this is Alvina, and that's when she stands up, and Dad literally just walked by her. Did not say hi, not a nod. It was like, I'm just going to pretend like you are not there, because his wife's standing right next to him.
And the first time having met her, too.
And I was so mad about that.
Well, your wife shouldn't be throwing it around.
Yeah. I called him out much later on that, and he's like, well, I have to be honest with you, son. She was very provocatively dressed, which right there, like, I was already fucking pissed. And, like, but he just said, I just know what would have happened had I said even one word to her. I would have had to hear so much from Debbie.
Fucking man up,
and he still did have to hear a lot from her.
I'm sure she was bitching about that and everything else the whole ride home.
Right. Even though he went to this great length to like completely ignore her. So I was like, that's it. I was like, you can't bring her to the wedding. I was like, I hate her. You always tell me you're going to kill yourself because you can't stand to be around her. I'm not going to have you come to my wedding.
This is 2 years into their marriage.
Yeah. I'm not going to have you come to my wedding and not be allowed to talk to my wife. You've made me so mad right now. You can't bring her.
But
and then
but you did not forbid him from coming.
no, I said I want you to come and blah blah blah, and he would call back and he'd be like, oh, I just want to know what kind of gift I can send you, and I'd be like, I don't want a gift, I want you to come and you to leave her there, and then it was totally a thing. Like when I got kicked out of New York, which we'll talk about later, like him calling Russ and stuff like that. I remember Russ's wife like telling me like the day before the wedding, like, you are doing this wrong. You need to invite both of them. I'm like, okay, shut the fuck up. You know,
I think I got a call from Grandma asking that you contact Dad and make everything okay.
But why? I admit that probably I would have just like stayed at. Although it's hard to say. I like to think I'm older now. But if Alvina and I had just met currently,
and you were young and hot-headed still at this time. You were 20.
But yeah, but even at 27, like if I would just now met Alvina and the same thing happened, I still wouldn't want him to come to my wedding. I wouldn't want him to bring her to my wedding, a couple weeks later.
Yeah. And how does Neckforders feel about this? Like knowing that Dad is being prevented.
I think he ended up lying to her, just saying something about like giving because he.
What lie is going to make sense when it comes to not going to your own son's wedding?
Because I would say you can't bring her. Just tell her that she can't come and tell her. He's like, I cannot say anything to her like that. I cannot tell her that I am invited.
Put her on the phone. I'll fucking say it.
That I am invited and she is not. She already feels uncomfortable enough in this family. And,
she
it's
did
all
that to
our
herself.
Fault. It's all our fault, of course.
Yeah. I was amazed that did you have a feeling like Mom was there, of course, hamming it up. But did you have, was there a part of you that thought like, it's the end of an 80s PG-13 movie and Dad comes running in at the end?
No.
To see your ideas?
I knew he wasn't coming because there was times when I'd be giving talks and he wouldn't even show up when I was giving a talk at the meeting. I was in track in 8th grade.
All right,
He
that's
never
all
showed
well
up
and
to
good,
one
but
of
a
those.
wedding is a whole other thing. Like I
knew
think
he wasn't coming because literally the morning of, there was a fucking message on our answering machine that Alvina played for me, just bawling his eyes out and saying things into a message with me, the person he's been having a conversation with. I'm sorry that you've, through bawling his eyes out, I'm sorry that you've forbidden me from coming to your wedding.
He's just rationalizing it with himself.
Yeah, you're not even fucking listening. Like, obviously, you didn't take away anything. And even though we talk now, he probably still considers that I forbade him from coming to the wedding.
I'm sure he does. I'm sure he's rewritten his own memory as far as that's concerned.
But I mean,
I'd really like to get him on the show and have him open up about that.
Then
because
again,
that is one thing he is unwilling to talk about.
What would they have done anyway? They would have just turned around and driven home. Would he have talked to Alvina? Would he?
I don't know. What was she wearing?
Would he have like acknowledged what happened before?
I'm sure not.
And I guarantee,
unless you really started digging, like what would happen if you went and hung out with Dad, say this weekend, on his 4 hours with Melissa, her sister, and wanted to talk about it, like brought this up. Let's talk about why you didn't come to my wedding.
No, I don't want to talk to him about it.
I'm not saying you're going to or that you should. I'm saying, do you think that he would open up in that time he had with you now?
He might, but I think that we would have completely different versions of everything that happened.
Yeah. That's true.
I don't know that he would open up. I don't know. And I think that Dad probably isn't a very good arguer. Once he can't just shut you down with like the tone of his voice,
which he hasn't been able to do in 12 years.
Yeah, like once he can't do that, I've never seen him. Like I used to see him argue with Mom all the time, and that's all he did to shut that down.
Yeah,
is just get all aggressive. But any other confrontation with anybody else, like who's going to talk to him equally, I just see him pussing out the whole time.
Yeah.
Like, he'll just be like, I don't want to talk about this. Obviously, it's not even worth bringing up, and whatever. But he's still married to her. He's still miserable.
I know, and it's still the same
I've almost gotten divorced like 3 times, and I got it much better than him.
I don't. Not that I'm seeing anybody right now, but I wonder if I get married, if and when I do, the time comes that I decide I'm going to get married, I'll obviously invite Dad. I don't have the same personal issues with Dad that you do. But I think I would also go as far, not that I would even need to invite his wife. We know at this point, 10 years later, she's not going to show up anyway.
Yeah, she
the only risk is that she's going to talk Dad out of going.
She would have shown up to mine. This was still a point where she would have still come.
Yeah, where she was still pretending to try, or although she never even went through that.
Not really.
No, she never made an effort to get along with our family ever, and I was fine with it because I hated her from the get-go.
Yeah.
This is unprofessional. Hold on.
But also it'd be a little different right now because, like I say, these were special circumstances. It was not just, oh, I hate your wife. Maybe I was looking for an excuse to uninvite her, but I mean, I found what I thought was a pretty good one anyway, which was like you completely ignored her when you met her. Don't come to her wedding. Like, she cried over that. My wife cried when that happened.
Right. And she had every reason to. And I think by this point, hadn't the thing
because
already...
you can't explain to her enough, like, what their situation is. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, why?
Although she's seen it at least
sense.
a couple times for herself since, right?
I'm sure
Since
she
the
would
baby's
understand
been born
now in retrospect. Oh yeah, and
there's no understanding it. Like, it makes no
Neckfurters.
sense.
Yeah, we see Neckfurters like every Sunday for dinner.
What if you did?
But
what
like,
if you kept that from me?
Even now, their most recent drama, like her brother, who she's never even talked to in so long, and we're talking about our stepmoms here, dies, kills himself. And Dad
hurled himself off of a cliff in Hawaii. That's pretty intense, dude.
Dad hasn't been able to enter the kitchen of his house.
Yeah.
You know, ever since it's happened. Like, it's World War III over there. He can't do anything.
Yeah, and that's the frustrating thing is...
If he's there, he's, get away from me. If he's downstairs playing with his Corvette lamp, it's all you do is spend your time down there. You know what I mean? He can't fucking win.
He
but
can never
refuses
do
to acknowledge
He can never
that.
do enough. And he's got
a mentality like, oh, I'm a fucking loser anyway. So
they cut back his hours at work, and so now he has Mondays off. And he's like, every once in a while, I would like to enjoy that 3-day weekend. I made plans. I was going to go to the movies, but then Neckforders tells me that we need to paint the house. The entire inside of the kitchen and living room needs to be painted in these 3 days that you have off.
Yeah.
So I never get time to even relax, son. I'm like, fucking stand up for yourself once in this 12 years of misery.
And what's in it for her, too?
Nothing.
That's
Like,
what I
it's some
understand. Why
weird
do you
power
want
play.
him around?
I have no idea. The way she treats him, or, unless he's lying, as Lori's theory was at one time.
When they come over here, the tension is so thick.
It doesn't...
It
yeah.
is crazy.
I know. I'd say in the 12 years or so they've been married, I've been in the same room with her and Dad since they were married probably 3 times, and it's always awful. One of those times was with you most recently.
And I was laying on the ground with my leg elevated the whole time.
Yeah.
What do you do when you see her? You go in for the hug, little handshake?
I think I'm past the point where that's even a concern. I just go in there and sit down and wait for it to be over. No, I don't hug her.
Yeah.
Can't wrap my arms around that thing, you know what I'm saying?
I think that would be awkward on every side, too. Like, we don't want to hug each other, but then it's probably a big thing when we don't hug her. Who knows?
Everything is with a big
Although
thing
Dad
with her.
tells us everything about their problems.
That's what I was just going to say. Okay, so at this point, I see Dad maybe once every 2 months, and it's always that strict 4 hours from 12:30 to 4:30 that he has with our sister
But he's
Melissa.
been saving his pocket change all week up for it because he's not allowed to spend any other money.
Nope. Melissa, did your mom give you money? Good, because I don't have any. No, but, so I don't enjoy the time that I spend with Dad, but it goes by swiftly enough. I mean, we're just driving around looking to do stuff that doesn't cost money, and there's never been one time where most of that time wasn't devoted to how miserable his marriage is.
Yeah.
You think after
Which
a certain
is just
point...
the last thing I want to fucking hear, you know what I
No,
mean?
I know, and he doesn't get that part of it. Like, he'll ask me, oh, how's your job search been going, blah, blah, blah. I'll go for 10 minutes, and then it'll turn into something about how she's mad at him and what an awful morning he had and how glad he is to escape it. And it used to be in the beginning, because he's been doing this literally since the beginning with us.
Yeah.
Like, he sees us as the sounding board, this open ear, when at the beginning we
Well,
gave
that's why
him
he's like not even allowed at Tracy's house anymore. Is because he wouldn't.
His own brother.
He's not allowed to spend any money. So every time one of those Saturdays came along, all he did was bring our sister over, sit down at Tracy's house, and just complain to him for 4 hours nonstop.
Right, and Tracy's the type, and we were too at the beginning, then get the fuck out of it.
Yeah.
What are you doing
Yeah.
that you have to come
And
over
then
here
when
and
he
bitch about
realized
it rather than take care of it? Nip it in the bud.
And then when you realize that that's not going to happen, I am never going to talk him into that, and he's never going to stop talking about it. That's when, like, you fucking lock the gate, Tracy style. Watch Dad jump over it.
Right, I don't know why I put up with it, but now it's like almost a joke because there's no talking. It used to frustrate me so much in the beginning. I'd be like, listen to what you're telling me.
I know every now and then I think like that one might have gotten through to him. Like
Nothing
like
gets
what
through
I
to him.
just said made so much sense that this time.
I'm going to send Dad an envelope, and he's going to open it up, and it's going to be this episode right here. I'll be like, listen, Dad. Listen, Pops. Seriously, though, he needs... There's nobody that can talk to him and make sense of it for him.
Oh.
Like, he's always struggling. He's always struggling to make this marriage work. It's never going to work.
Yeah.
That was clear since day one.
It's like I need to be married and I need something to complain about.
Yeah.
Plus, he really would be like big time on his ass without her income.
I suppose so.
Or I
but
don't know
he
if
could
it's her
make
income, but whatever money she has.
whatever
she
money
has.
Dad makes, he could live on his own in a one-bedroom apartment.
And
That's
be-
just
and be
like
much
such a
get to
shameful
watch-
experience for him.
Yeah.
You know?
But really, like, think about just fun. Like, you can watch movies. You can go out to movies.
Right.
And you can fucking watch movies in your house whenever you want.
Yeah, you're not hiding things from your wife. Uh-oh, the Sears catalog came in. I better ditch that quick.
And, like, how is it not so sad to be like, here's two boys that I screamed at their entire childhood, and now, like, I'm going to show them, I'm going to brag about, like, my 10-inch TV, but then in the same sentence, be like, I have to put headphones on because the noise will bother Debbie. Neckfurters.
He wants our sympathy, but he's he's never going to get it.
Yeah. Not this time.
Brotherhood, are out of control. They will crash the airwaves with a microphone. So sit down tight and listen close. All the ladies now take off your clothes. Blend Brotherhood. Blend Brotherhood.
We're hot. We're live.
I know you thought we were done, but in that time it took us to go out and smoke, I actually got a text from Dad.
Really?
Yeah. It says he's divorcing Neckfurters and is marrying storytelling.
You're so stupid. You had me. Like, he's divorcing her? What a fucking idiot.
What a turn of events it would
I
be.
believed it.